Welcome to Thinkin, Bros. My name is Chris.
And I'm Alex.
We're your favorite corner store philosophers trying to figure out life one conundrum at a time. And today we have a very special guest, DC, stand-up comedian, INTJ lifter, founder and host of 8 Plates Podcast, recently described in a lawsuit, or not so recently,
it's
but
been like 2 years. But yeah,
two years ago was described in a lawsuit as thinly veiled political extremism masquerading as comedy.
Yeah.
Co-founder of iHeartRadio.
It's so true.
Germaphobe.
Yeah.
Let's go through a list of what you're not. It'll be
actually, my credits first. Okay, associate producer, Mega Fish Corp. We're starting a new movie this year as well. I'm making big to Hollywood, so this is charity essentially is what I'm doing right here.
That's beautiful.
I'm kidding. Actually, these guys are cool. You should listen to the podcast.
It. I mean, you met him 10 minutes ago, so that's
no.
unfair.
I know him all the time. I see, so and so liked your story, so that's like a very close friend of mine. I like it.
Awesome, bro.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, what comes out of your extensive description is that you're an interesting guy. It's hard to be,
don't say that,
divisive about that.
Yeah.
So what we invited you for is an episode on interesting people. Okay, so we're gonna try to determine what makes an interesting person, and the goal of that is for people who don't consider themselves interesting necessarily to become more interesting and know exactly what path to take and to identify why we find people interesting. So I've compiled a variety of factors. And we're going to be trying to go through each one, debate if they're going to go into our final definition of being interesting. And my theory on this is this, okay? I have like 8 to 10 factors. We're going to be going through these factors. And if you were to rate these factors from 1 to 10, my theory is that to make an interesting person, you would need, let's say, an average score of like 40. So you could be maxed out in 4 of those factors or be very balanced in all the factors, okay?
Yeah.
So all I want is your input, your maybe stories, theories on this. Now, let me tell you my cheese theory. So my cheese theory is there are mozzarellas in the world, and then there are the blue cheeses, okay? I developed this when I was in Cégep, around 17, and my theory is some people are just kind of plain, and they're liked by everyone. They go on pizza, mainstream, don't have ripples to their personality. But then there are the blue cheeses, and they're very divisive. And they're the people who, some people love, the cheese lovers, they love them. And then the other people, they truly hate them. And I think this goes into a theory of what makes a person interesting, but it can't be all of it. So any thoughts on that?
This is the entire theory. So like these people are interesting and they're kind of divisive, and other people are kind of milquetoast.
That's the mini theory introducing the bigger subject.
I understand. Yeah, that sounds pretty fair. I agree with that. Because if everybody likes you, you have to appeal to everybody. That's a good one. Yeah. I'm for it.
So much sarcasm. I love it.
I'm serious. I think it's good to be. You know what the problem is? Because then people will hear this. Goobers will be like, "Oh, the Thinkin Bros podcast told me to be divisive," and they're just gonna be an asshole. And they're like, "Oh, why does nobody like me?" Because you're an asshole. You have to be. Yeah. First of all, I hate that you called me interesting, because now I have to pretend like nah. You know what I'm saying? Because anybody who says I'm interesting is like unlikable immediately. You know what I'm saying? It's like a very. So that's what I'm saying. Don't try to be. Just be yourself. That's pretty much what I have to say. Be yourself, be chill, be cool, and yeah.
Absolutely, and this is going to be one of the factors that we're going to get to. So
being yourself.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Absolutely. So okay. Also, the pressure of being interesting isn't on you. I'm arguing it, but whatever. It's the premise of the episode. We're not going to sway off it now. Okay.
It's a good episode.
Well, thank you for now. So let's keep the energy up, guys. Okay.
That's gonna be good.
Can you speak about the effects of social media that it's had on personalities?
Yeah. The little comments we developed on that is, as you said, I'm also of your opinion that like saying you're interesting, and honestly, even I was skeptical going into this episode of like, let's develop a theory of what an interesting person is. I'm of the opinion that I don't care if I'm interesting or not. If you want to talk to me, you talk to me. If not, then you don't. But it is like being yourself is a big factor. And I think a problem with social media is that everything is so like widespread. And some people get to the point where they live their whole lives on social media, and all the jokes, they have no inside jokes.
Yeah.
Because like some small groups of friends, like 7 people have inside jokes, and that's funny, and no one else understands. When you're on social media, it's like memes that everyone knows.
Right.
Sometimes, if it's too globalized, and then you're not interesting at all because you lack personality completely, right? You're not good in real social situation. You rehearse everything, and you have everything in common with everyone, and so you lose your individuality. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big part of it, I think, because people who speak like they're online all the time are insufferable. No, so people who are just like speaking to memes and whatever. That's just annoying. You can have a couple of references to something that's current, but you can't be like the moment when, and then go like crazy, because that's just insufferable. You can't speak like that. Wait. So what's going on? First, I'm sorry. How's the episode? This is recorded. I'm not actually trying, but like, let's focus it, because right now we've kind of. Do we give our opinions, or are we focusing on something?
So yeah, I'm gonna start naming parts of personalities, and we're gonna tell stories and try to debate on, is that the thing that goes into being interesting? Can we name that a factor?
Yeah.
Or is it part of a bigger factor, or should it not be in the way?
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. So one of the questions I had for you is, if we take this social media perspective, you've been in the comic world, and perhaps you see something. You see maybe you see what we observe in normal life on a bigger scale, because what you see often, let's say in high school, something common like that happens, where people have a personality online where they have time to rehearse everything they're saying.
Yeah.
They're good texters, they seem interesting, or perhaps dating sites, right? And then you meet them in person and you get catfished by a man where there's a complete lack of personality. He has ChatGPT generated jokes.
Yeah.
And my question is, could this be said for on the bigger scale of being a comic? Could you be very good at crafting jokes, rehearsing them, seeming to be charismatic on stage, but when you talk to them, they have a potato personality. They have nothing to say.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm not a good person to be asked that, because I'm not a good comic at all. I'm pretty shit at stand-up comedy, actually. I do well on the show, and I do other stuff, but I do see that where someone can be really good on stage. Someone can be very proficient at writing jokes and making material that's prepared, but then on the riffing side, they can't do it. They can't, speak to someone normally. They're just very awkward, shy, reserved. So yeah, it's not, stand-up is not, now I'm going to speak like I know what it is, but you don't, you're not yourself on stage. You have a personality that you develop, and then you use what you've had in your life to make jokes. It's not just someone, people, because it's so natural usually when it's well done. People think it's just, you go on stage and you just, you're yourself, but it's not. It's a performance. So yeah, that's definitely true. Same thing with Twitter comedians. As you said, people are like, they're great at having a short little 140 character response, but then in real life, they don't really have the time to cook that up. So yeah.
So let's jump to the factor of authenticity. Okay? Yeah. Because one of the things I had is, I don't know if you know about the UFC, but Chael Sonnen.
Never heard of it.
Okay. So Chael Sonnen was a person who played a character of being the mean guy.
Yeah.
But it was completely a character. And honestly, I would characterize that character as being interesting.
Yeah.
So if we want to include authenticity, we have to remain aware that if a person is playing a character, you could put their authenticity as 0. But what could you not?
Nah, because you can play a character that's based on yourself, so it's got to be something like 30%. 30? Can we agree on 30?
That seems fair.
But it doesn't have to be 0. I understand what you're saying.
Right,
but
right.
Yeah, it can be like inspired.
Like the thing about when you're reading an author, it says more about the author than the characters they're displaying in the story. You know that thing?
Yeah, but I mean, that's the overall story. I mean, the exact character can be inspired by the person itself as well. Chael Sonnen, I don't know personally, but he didn't, go in a mask or whatever. He doesn't go like luchador. So there's a part of him, at least appearance-wise, that's somewhat the person that was there first. Wouldn't you say?
Certainly.
Wouldn't you agree?
Certainly.
All right.
That seems fair, but if we were to take an extreme character, I'm sure there are some examples that are hiding out there.
Macho Man, Randy Savage. That's an extreme character.
For example. So
the cream rises.
So it's maybe someone that is so disconnected from what a normal person could be, and we could, argue that their authenticity is at 0.
Hey, wait a second. What's normal? What's a normal person? First of all.
Joe Schmo from the street. Point at a person average person. Like,
yeah, but average person, the new normal. There's new normals every year.
The normal right now.
Right.
Okay. So all I'm saying is, if you want to compromise on authenticity, you better deliver on the character. That's what I'm trying to argue for. Yeah. So if we want to include authenticity as being something that is part of an interesting person, and one of the things that authenticity provides for you is being unique.
Yeah.
Because the fact that your 20-something years were different from mine,
Yeah.
if you're completely authentic with me, you're going to be extremely different from me.
Right.
Right? So, okay. Uniqueness is certainly a factor in being interesting because
Sure.
everyone wants a new perspective. But if you compromise on the authenticity, well, you don't even have to compromise on
Do you
being
ever
unique.
think of unique sounds like unique? So it's got to be only from you? So
Well,
like
what's
you
the
can't...
unique part?
No, unique, I don't know, but like unique. It's like unique. It's like unique to you.
Right. So
It's very important to your point, I think.
right, like can't spell family without fam. So it's like
Yeah, but family means family, no?
fam is like more, familiar.
Ah, okay.
Okay, so yeah, so that's that.
That's just a quick little philosophical thought. We can move on. Go ahead.
No, that was beautiful. It's
Thank
the intricacies of language, isn't it? That's
True.
why the English language is so beautiful.
Is it? I think Spanish is cooler.
I think as a universal language, English is better.
I think you got the thing. I hate what you just said, man. I resent it. I don't like the fact that people want to replace languages by universal one. I think English can be a supplement. You can have that as well, so you help business or whatever. But to want to destroy languages is I think you're destroying humanity in a sense. You're destroying like a culture and history.
Yeah, I don't see much value in preserving cultures in itself as a
Yeah.
principle.
Yeah.
I agree.
Nice.
Some languages offer something that English doesn't. I think there's a tribal language that makes the distinction about testimony and what you've seen yourself. So there's a prefix that
Yeah.
makes it so you say it before the statement that you make,
Yeah.
and it's made clear that you didn't experience that. I
Nice.
think that's beautiful. But there are languages with inefficiencies that don't really provide anything to the overall
Right.
thing. Yeah.
It's not about usefulness. It's just about the culture itself. Like you learn about where the humanity, not the humanity, but like where humanity started and where humanity like developed to with the different languages. It's like culture, for example. When the Library of Alexandria. Ever heard of it?
Yeah,
It's like
cool.
a humongous library. It burnt down. Books and books and books and tomes and volumes all gone.
Yeah, but those are people who spent their time thinking and developing theories. Those aren't people
Yeah.
who accidentally invented languages because of convenience, and some of them developed in less efficient ways than others, like
Oh,
French.
So efficiency should be the thing for language. So the more efficient, the more we keep it.
Well, as a universal one, yeah.
Okay.
Just universal, not meaning that every single other one should be eradicated.
Yeah.
Maybe there's nuance to be provided by things like, well, again, Latin. I think it's a pretty good universal one, but
Latin, and how do you speak Latin? It always sounds like kind of goofy. It's like Amanomenus Pontus Pontificus. Like I just go to church. I don't know what the actual Latin is.
right. But aren't you the guy who said your perception of normal changes every year? Okay, I mean,
True.
go back to Latin times. It's not going to be weird.
Latin times
Yeah, Latin times.
sounds.
Okay, storytelling and conversation. So
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty big part of it. What I've noticed is that people who, storytelling is a thing that people try consciously to develop to be more interesting in conversations. I think it's a skill you can develop on its own, but it's a certain like band-aid fix to the problem of not being interesting. Like, oh, I'm gonna follow this structure, and my the way I say my climax is gonna
Yeah.
make them think this is a better story. I don't think it's that simple. But one thing that I've noticed is in interesting storytellers, they are very good at freezing the states of mind that they had and the other people had at the precise time frames in the story. And it's like they're bringing you along with them on the story.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Kind of. Okay, so here's an example.
Yeah. We went to a comedy show yesterday.
Oof. What'd you see?
Chris D'Elia.
Oh, okay. He was in Montreal. Hell yeah.
Yeah. And so basically he was saying basically what Chris is saying is that you have to be like relatable and just immerse the person into the story. And he was talking about how, pretty much everyone at some point in their life like rehearses a certain speech they're gonna like a conversation they're gonna have with a person, and it never goes to plan, and like you think about it before. So he was on the plane over to Montreal, and you know how you don't have Wi-Fi in like the middle part of the sky, you only have it on the ground, and then you have to like reach a certain threshold and then you
Right.
have it again.
Yeah.
Well, first off, he started off by insulting that because you just have Wi-Fi everywhere,
Okay. I
Um,
don't think that's how technology works. You can't just say like, oh, let's just have universal iPhones. You got to make them. So you would have to irradiate the entire world with Wi-Fi rays. So people think 5G did a certain disease. If you add more rays, there's more consequences. Sorry, but you're saying
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And then he was pretty sure he was over 10,000 feet, right? And he wanted to,
Big guy.
Yeah. He was pretty sure the plane had crossed the threshold of 10,000 feet.
Hell yeah.
And then he wanted to ask the hostess what was going on because he didn't have Wi-Fi yet.
Yeah.
And so he was preparing the speech in his mind, and he had like a 3-step process where he says, "Hey, why don't we have Wi-Fi? Aren't we over 10,000 feet?" And then she was gonna be like, "Oh, we actually don't have Wi-Fi," and like feel kind of bad. And then he was gonna bring it home. He was gonna say, "It's 2023 though."
Yeah.
And then she was gonna like cry or something.
Okay.
And then she comes
so
over.
Bully people who are paid like minimum wage to serve you.
Yeah, they don't have Wi-Fi.
Hell yeah. I'm for that. Actually, because people are really pro servers and shit. I agree with that, but at the same time, it's like these people have egos sometimes. You got to break them down. You really do. They're too relaxed in their serving position.
And so she comes over and she tells he tells her, "Why don't we have Wi-Fi?" And then she says, "Oh, you don't know." So that messes him up completely.
Right.
And he's bamboozled for the rest of the conversation.
And then he said,
yeah.
He was talking about how that changed the social dynamics for another 2 minutes, which was charged with like jokes in between. But the way I would have told this story is I was on the plane and there was no Wi-Fi.
Right.
Right? So what I'm saying is storytelling and conversation skills are definitely a factor to consider in being interesting. Wouldn't you say?
Being able to speak, absolutely. You can't talk, you can't project your inner, deeper, twisted thoughts. That's true.
Yeah, so it's almost another part of being authentic, but it's just having the skill to take the authenticity from within you to the outside, isn't it?
I don't know if it's authenticity. People are really fake and speak well. They are the best at telling you stories, and they're not true at all. Authentic.
Here's another thing about conversations, okay?
Yeah.
I will play this clip, but also I will say the following. I encountered a girl who was complaining about how every guy she was meeting on Tinder was not interesting at all.
Yeah.
And I saw this TikTok outrage about how hard it is to, Gen Zers complaining, how hard it is to start the talking stage again.
Right.
Right? And they were saying, oh, when he texts you, what's your favorite color?
Yeah.
Okay? So here, I would like to establish what it takes.
Green.
Exactly. That's a very good point, because my thing was going to be, sure, you may blame the guy for asking what your favorite color is, but do you not find it problematic that your answer is kind of just blue? And instead, you could have said something
it's green.
Right. For example.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Charged with personality. This is a hypothetical, so you don't have to in this situation. You don't have to be yourself. My point is, if you were interesting, you wouldn't say green or blue. You would say, well, don't after 5th grade, does it even make sense to have a favorite color or something like that? And then you're making the conversation actually interesting.
No. Wait a second. I disagree. Yeah, now you made it interesting, because now I disagree with that. There's definitely a point of having a favorite color.
Right. Okay. So
it's it's aesthetic choices, bro. Do you like the Mesopotamian art, or do you prefer Renaissance art?
But you see what happened there.
Yeah.
I created more conversation.
No, I hate you, because I want to destroy you in an argument. I want to Ben Shapiro you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that said, wouldn't I have created less controversy by saying blue?
Yeah.
And you would have been like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the clip.
I love boring people. But they've got to have something interesting about their boringness. Like people who are just like, wow, this is cool. Oh, you walk into a place and they're like, this is a cool cafe. I'm like, what, bro? Mm-hmm. That's what you're bringing to the table? I see it. Do you know what I'm saying? But say other stuff. Be a boring guy and be like, wow, work's really getting to me because this guy came in. And then I'm like, I'm all in, dude. If this is a story about you, it's boring, but I'm in. Be an interesting, boring. But there are people, my point is, that are just not on the wavelength, the funny wavelength, right? That get this shit, and not on the interesting, wow, look at this person like they're an exhibit or in a museum. There's people in between that are just like, what'd you have to eat for dinner last night? And you're like, chicken. Now what?
I agree. I like that clip. It was a good clip.
My question was going to be, you take someone like Joe Rogan, who I would say is an interesting guy. Maybe you haven't watched a full episode, but you know of him, and the reason why he would be so popular is probably because he provides some interest to people.
Yeah, he's got good guests on.
But see, that's the thing.
Yeah.
sometimes
I love Joe Rogan. I'm not gonna be anti Joe Rogan. I love Joe Rogan.
Okay, cool. So what I'm saying is, what he provides makes certain episodes interesting because when you have a neurophysicist on, it's not going to be for everyone. But when you have an MMA confrontational expert that is good at talking and loves elk, you're getting something from that. And you're going to get the science guy who's been in a lab for the last 20 years and actually getting a good conversation out of him, right?
Yeah.
Do you not see? So in a conversation, if both people are interesting, obviously it's going to be a cool conversation. If both people are uninteresting, it's not going to be a cool conversation. But if there's one and one, do you think that the interesting guy or girl can pull the conversation towards something interesting without the other one being as skilled?
It's effort though. It's work. If you're doing like 5 hours of shows and stuff like that, maybe you don't have the voluntary, manpower to go ahead and be like, yeah, I'm going to turn this conversation interesting. It depends. It depends on your interest, is what I'm saying. Because anybody, essentially, you see stand up, you love stand up, dude. You love it. You laugh. You love. You watch them do it, and they don't need anybody. You can do your one man show if you want. And if you can include someone else, more power to you. But it does take work. So sometimes I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Or like whoever is just like, yeah, I don't care about this enough to be like, oh, yeah, let me, bring this or that to the mix. So what were you asking? Is it possible? Yes.
Yeah. So my thing is, in identifying the interesting person in the conversation, is it possible that a conversation between an interesting person and a boring person could be boring? And your answer to that would be, yeah, well, if the interesting person isn't interested in wasting their energy on like pulling it up, it's going to be like, oh, so here's a good question to you, right? Like, let's say you're in the dating world and you're an interesting guy, but you meet a vanilla person and you ask a good question and they say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, that's over, right? It's over.
Maybe it's not a topic that interests the person, though. If you're like really big into, you were saying like UFC and she doesn't care, it's like, yeah. You can't blame the girl for not having the same interest as you. You should be able to carry conversation in a sense that's interesting to everybody. Like interesting doesn't mean interesting in one topic. It means interesting in general. It means you're able to make the dartboard interesting. You're able to make the drinks that came late interesting. You don't have to, because anybody who's lived any crazy experiences can be interesting, quote unquote, without being interesting themselves. And by the way, no one's actually interesting or boring. I feel like people tend to be more or the other, but that's a mood thing. Like no one's happy. More people are prone to be happy more often.
In identifying people in your life who you would rather hang out with, you would probably choose more interesting people. If you want to call it a spectrum, that's fine. That's why I said in the beginning that it can be a grade. And the minimal grade is where you pass the threshold of, okay, I want this person around me because they can bring me something.
Yeah.
And obviously, you can be at 100, you can be at 0, but I'm talking about the 40 versus 60% of interest. And I'm trying to define what it is.
I'm an engineering student. I'm doing engineering. I don't want a funny guy who doesn't know math to work with me. So interesting can also apply by the definition. I may not be the best friends with that person, but if he's able to put in the work, that's what I want. So like, I just have an issue with saying like, oh, some people are interesting, some people are not. Like it depends on the situation, on the context. By the way, it's all a thing of matches. Like if you match with someone, then it's good, it's awesome. But some people just don't. Like you look at any celebrity ever, they have as many haters as lovers. Yeah, this guy sucks because you don't vibe with him. That's all. Either I'm right or you're wrong, pal. Let's do it. Let's duke it out.
I love that.
All
that's the principle of the show, and that's the main thing he's against. So
you don't like confrontation? I think you should be exposed to as much of it as possible. That way you're stronger. You shouldn't be confrontational with your family, except in this case. But I'm saying in general. And then
no.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I do like confrontation and everything. What
you like it?
If I like confrontation?
Yeah.
No, that's not true.
Okay.
I don't like confrontation, but I think it's necessary and like for me to grow, and it's necessary, for us collectively to get to the truth.
Sure.
That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
But his point of like, that's what this podcast is mainly about. He said that after you said, either you're right or either you're right or you're wrong. Either I'm right or you're right.
Yeah, I phrased it so bad it doesn't make any sense actually.
Did you say like the same thing twice? Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what he was.
It's a quick little bit on the fly, by the way. Quick bit on the fly.
Shout out to the last episode. I don't know what's going on right now.
Oh no, I'm just saying in general. I think you should drop them in because if you have an audience, people will catch on. People like Werner Herzog, documentary filmmakers, whatever. Like people who are really, really. I know you don't. It's fine. That was my little intellectual pull, but I'm just saying like he's funny as well. But it's not people who crack jokes all the time. They just have such a crazy life experience that they can be interesting in that sense as well. It's not just being funny. You can.
No, what you said was either you're right or I'm right, and that's it. And he liked the decisiveness of it. What he likes is like having it black or white, and that's what I disagree.
Yeah.
And you seem to be disagreeing with him on the, you know, calling it interestingness a spectrum, which I would too. And you know, and also the fact that sometimes it's just a matching thing. You know,
That's what.
like
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm the figure at the top of a hierarchy that can judge everyone as interesting or not interesting because of how they interact with me. I think people can like seem uninteresting to me because, you know, there's no chemistry for some reason. I don't know enough about
It's
it.
not a top-down thing; it's a sideways thing. So you can have a gradation of people you find interesting to you, but it doesn't mean that you have the ultimate arbiter of like, oh, I see this is interesting. You know, it's like I'd rather speak to some people than others, but I'm not going to make a universal scale for them. You know, like you can't tell other people that this guy's interesting or not. Only that you find him interesting or not. You know.
What I mean is, if you guys remember, the very goal of this episode,
Yeah.
it was with a voice crack, it was necessary.
Yeah.
It is to identify how people can identify the people that are interesting in their lives and to harness their skills towards becoming more interesting themselves. Now, in that definition itself is perspective, is subjectivity,
True.
and that's fine. Now, you said there are some people who are purely very interesting in one subject, correct? We thought of Jocko Willink, right?
I didn't, but go ahead. Yeah, why?
Yeah, you put humor at 0, for example, but you have discipline or, you know, experience in one subject, which is very high, right? Like you would put him at 9 or 10. And in the context of, okay, now I'm learning about discipline and I need this, he's the most interesting guy. You don't want a stand-up comedian to talk to you about that. And that's fine.
I mean, they don't. My experience, the stand-up comedians have the least freaking discipline of all time. They wake up at 4 p.m. You know, they
Then-
drink all day, and then they go on stage for 15 minutes to be like,
Yeah,
Dude,
and have a
that's
reason to go out afterwards, like at the clubs and stuff.
Yeah, look, I love all my friends essentially are stand-up comedians, and I love them, but you know, not the summum of, you know, human accomplishment necessarily, and in other aspects that aren't comedy necessarily. Usually, you'll have, like with actors, you'll have a person who's really great at their job, and then kind of mediocre in the rest of the. Yeah, I know, you know.
And wasn't that my point from the very beginning?
You
If you
were,
have a
we're agreeing. You're right.
yeah, if you have a maxed out trait, you can compromise absolutely on other traits.
Yes.
It's quite chaotic, so I think we're kind of agreeing.
Yeah.
For now, and we can conclude
always.
at the end. Okay, because we don't like confrontation.
No, I like confrontation. I
Okay.
just agree.
Also, you like it.
I actually do like confrontation.
like it,
Yeah,
okay.
I think it's healthy. People who lack confrontation in the real world take it out on people who don't deserve it.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
General knowledge versus specific knowledge.
Yeah.
General knowledge, I think, could be a trait that could be put in there, right? If you can always provide, you know, I don't know. I mean, I'm a big geography hater. I'm a big history hater, but if you're
You
always
hate
out there,
history?
I mean,
Or
I
do
hate.
you, or are you just too lazy to read the books?
I think the way people get taught history is very boring and
I agree.
counterproductive.
I agree. The school system sucks, but
Okay.
history is very important, I think.
So my thing was
So
for
we're
the
hopping
nuance,
to general knowledge, not choice of activities.
for the nuance thing, right?
Nice.
If you're talking to an Eskimo, in your mind, his level of specific knowledge, at least about that, right, is a 10 out of 10, correct?
Out of
Because,
what? About what? Sorry, you didn't say.
I mean, about Eskimo lifestyles or,
Okay, about his own life, of course.
yeah, or
yeah.
an Amish person, right?
Amish.
Correct?
Nice. Churn butter. Have you met the Amish though? They're really cool. They're
Nah.
good people.
No.
Yeah. In Philly, when I go there, there's I go there for shows sometimes. There's literally the Reading Market. There's a market where a percentage of Amish people just go just to sell. And it's always crazy to see the contrast between regular people and the Amish, because they live the Amish lifestyle, but they do go there to sell their I think nuts. I haven't bought stuff from them, but it's always funny. They stare at you like they want to kill you. They don't, but it's just they're just like really, you know, they're enthralled by your personality. So maybe if you're not an interesting person, talk to the Amish. They're gonna love you.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's about perspective, correct?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, you talk to the Amish. To you, you might put them in your classification system as being a 10 out of 10 of specific knowledge, and that specific knowledge would be about the Amish lifestyle. So let's say a Joe Rogan podcast would be, he might, in the Amish community, he might be just a regular guy, right? He might fall under the threshold of interesting just off scores. But because he has that 10 out of 10 Amish knowledge, specific knowledge, and you aren't, for example, again, hypotheticals, you're not a person who has a lot of extensive knowledge on that. To you, he might be interesting.
Yeah.
Correct? So my argument was, of course, the thing that varies the most between people, for you, it's not as impressive that someone has specific knowledge about, what do you know? So stand-up comedy, like the insides of stand-up comedy, let's say. For you, you meet like Dave Chappelle, and what he has to provide for you specifically is maybe a 7 out of 10, because the first 3 you kind of already know out of doing
I'm
it.
essentially like him. We're the same person.
Yeah. So you should, yeah. Now, for me, let's say, if I didn't know anything about stand-up comedy, seeing someone that has such extensive knowledge would be a 10 out of 10. And that could be the difference between making him interesting for someone and uninteresting for someone.
Yeah, if you like a topic. If someone has 10 out of 10 knowledge on, like, inflatability of sneakers, I don't give a shit. I don't care. So it's like, yeah, stand-up comedy is like an interesting thing if you like to laugh. If you're a sad guy, you don't care.
Well, I mean, I'm sure a lot of sad people love stand-up comedy, but...
Yeah,
but... Well, okay, so what I'm saying is, I think other things are pretty objective in a way, where general knowledge is just general knowledge, right? It's what I'm trying to argue for. No, we can argue for it, right? But one of the things that is the most variable between people is the specific knowledge thing, because one, there's interest in that specific knowledge.
Yeah.
I might know everything about like bird mating, and you could be like, okay, well, I don't care.
Yeah.
And also, how much do you already know of that?
Bird mating, is that when you date on Twitter?
Ayo, it's not Twitter anymore, so it's not a good joke. So okay, what I'm arguing for is that the thing that varies the most. Let's say you're looking at someone and I'm looking at someone, and I'm saying he's interesting. You're saying he's uninteresting. The bigger,
to me,
yeah, to you. So so the biggest difference maker in that is what I think is that the specific knowledge that they have to provide doesn't provide value to you. Any thoughts?
No, I agree. Yeah, definitely. It's like I don't see why this is presented like an issue or whatever. Yeah, definitely.
So no, it's the thing that where Alex and you, I'm sure you agree that like, oh, this is like so subjective. To you, he might be interesting. To you, it might be uninteresting. What I'm saying is there are objective factors where, look, everyone can appreciate a little bit of intelligence. Everyone can appreciate a little bit of general knowledge and, you know, facts to provide to people. But
keep going. I like this.
What is certainly subjective is how much you're interested in the information that they have to provide.
Yeah.
So, look, you might say
this. We went through it. Yes, I agree.
Is this good?
Yeah.
Okay, man. Like,
no, it's good. It's awesome.
So we agree. Like, we go step by step. You're telling me, okay, everyone can appreciate a good storyteller.
No.
I mean,
wait, just no.
Okay.
Jeez. I mean, it's not. It's literally depends on if the good storyteller is to you. If to you that's a good storyteller, then yeah. If not, no.
The thing that makes a good story for you is perhaps the emotional attachment to it, which would go to the specific knowledge thing.
That would, but what if a story is like super gruesome and people are offended by that? They're not going to enjoy the storytelling.
The way you structure a story can be made interesting in a universal way, correct? You would hide certain facts from me in the story because revealing them later could, you know, answer some questions that you asked of early. This is why hooks exist. This is why there's a structure for content. This is why movies have a theory behind them where, you know, have you seen a breakdown of the plot of The Dark Knight? Everything can be represented as a circle about the hero journey, everything.
Yeah, but that's a structure that's been followed. Doesn't mean that it should be, though. Because this is a structure that can be followed for very formulaic movies. Doesn't mean that they're good or bad, but the narrative structure has to change because it's art. I get deep into movies, dude.
I understand that to a certain extent. You might say, okay, let's just say this. Yeah.
I'm ready. Hit me with it.
We're certainly gonna agree about if someone is a good conversationalist and storyteller more than we're gonna agree about that person has something interesting to say. Because you're so into movies and I'm so into, I don't know, what do I do? Huh? Philosophy. Right?
Yes. No, you're right.
You
are into philosophy. That's awesome.
So if we were to identify the big boy, the identifying factor between your judgment of someone being interesting and my judgment, it would be specific knowledge. And it could affect, you know, the way they tell stories, the conversations we have.
Yeah, I'm so lost. I agree though.
Yeah, so we had this discussion with Chris where like it seems as though your choice of activities, let's say you're going out on a first date and you have to choose an activity to do with let's say you're a guy and you're going out with a girl. And so you're going out on a date and you can choose what we characterize as passive, semi-active, or active activities. You can have dates where you're passive, semi-active, or very active. Okay, so a situation where you're passive, I just switched it around. Okay,
So now we're talking situations, not activities.
there's some dates where you can remain passive.
Yeah.
So if everything is done for you, like you go to an escape room, let's say something like that.
Gosh. Why do people do that? Have you ever been?
I've been.
Did you like it? Because people love it. I just don't understand the point of it.
I don't love it. I feel like it's not. People frame it as like you need to be smart to do it, and if you're smart, you figure it out. But
yeah.
I feel like sometimes it's just luck, and some patterns are just anyway.
Yeah.
You can go to an escape room, and everything is done for you. You know, you like.
That's the point though, because guys who aren't really smart don't have much going on. If you were actually a smart guy, you would solve problems in real life, not look for little small ones or whatever. You know.
That's. I think you agree with us then, because that's part of our point. You know, semi-active activity, where you have to be semi-active, would be like. Mini golf. When you go play mini golf, you do something.
Yeah.
But not everything is just framed for you already, and you have to have sort of a personality. You know, you putt and then you can make jokes about what you just did or what she just did, and you can sort of let your personality shine through. And it is harder in a sense because you have to have a personality, but
Harder than what? Sorry.
Harder than doing an escape room. I feel like when you're doing an escape room, you're doing something the whole time. Oh, that's true. Yeah, let's say going to the movies, going to a cinema, and you just you close your mouth the whole time, and you don't have to speak, and you're just like you do nothing, and then I
mean, you do analyze though. If it depends, because what you're saying is important because it depends what you do there. I could go to mini golf and just sit down, or just throw whatever. But if I actually apply myself, I feel like that would be active. If I actually tried to get hole in ones every time, no birdies.
Okay, but I'm talking about semi-active in the sense that you have to like make conversation with the person, you know.
Oh, we're all so this is all
still
social.
a first date. Yeah,
okay,
it's still a first date thing.
Okay,
you know?
okay, yeah.
Yeah, and so like in a, I'm not talking about after the movie, but you're watching a movie. You don't have to do anything. You just
not
sit there.
bring a date to the first date in the movie.
Exactly. You don't let your personality shine through. But
and if the movie sucks, you're just both depressed and you hate life. But I feel like stand up would be different because stand up there's a live aspect. Go to a live show, go to theater or whatever.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Some people still bring girls to the movie for the first date, and like
because they suck. Because they want to escape the. Yeah, go ahead.
No.
I'm just explaining because I've seen this a million times. I know what people do. It's just it sucks, dude. Because you're not the point of the date is supposed to get to know the person.
Exactly.
And if you're just like, oh well,
and so
let Christopher Nolan speak for me, it's like shut up, dude.
A semi-active activity opens the door for that. So you go mini golf, and then you have to talk. You're forced to talk some of the time.
Yeah.
And then an active activity.
You can't not talk because that'd be really awkward.
Exactly.
You just go there and just like, okay, your turn. That would suck.
Yeah. And then second date, you go to the movies.
Yeah.
And then an active activity where you get to be active would be straight up just going to a coffee shop, right?
Yeah. Like
drinking coffee is 1% of the date, and then the other 99 is just you talking and exposing your personality. So, I mean that factors into being interesting or not. Maybe that's like you have a preconceived score of interestingness, if you like, and then you do these things, and if you're not interesting, you're sort of forced to go to the movies, but then like you're even less interesting. You seem to be agreeing with this.
Yeah. I feel like maybe not first date, but I think that if you think movies are important, you should probably go see movies together. That's different. Because if you see a movie together, you get to discuss it afterwards. You get to be like, oh, I like that, I didn't like this. It's not just a passive thing because you get to open up a topic of conversation afterwards. But when we're talking first dates, you don't know the person, so you don't know what they're going to think. You don't know how many movies they've seen. You don't know anything about them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the larger point was interesting people gravitate more towards active activities.
Sure.
Whereas, if someone was uninteresting, they would do the safe bet of, okay, here's 2 hours of no pressure.
Yeah.
I just have to, do the
it's not,
shoulder
there
counting.
Is pressure, though, because then you're thinking about what's going to happen after. What's going to, like, I feel like that's the problem, because they think it's going to be easier, but it's actually harder.
Well, it's not harder to get through it. It's harder to achieve something with it.
That's what I'm
like
saying.
Getting to know.
Yeah.
I 100% agree, but it's just when you're in the predicament of being uninteresting,
Predicament. Nice.
you're going to choose activities. I think this theory was rooted in me hating people who are like, hey, let's do skydiving or something.
That'd
Like,
be so sick.
yeah, see,
I would love that.
no, that's cool. And you know what? One of the next points is varied choice of activities. But my point would be, there's a way to do it where you're gonna recount the story of you being like, oh, this is the most scared I've been in my life, and having a good story to tell about it. And there's some people that are gonna be like, well, we wanted to hang out, and I was like, this is what cool people do. I'll do that, and
Yeah.
that's all they have to say about it.
Yeah, it's horrible.
And it's passive in the way where, well, you let yourself fall and then you pull the thing and it's over.
Yeah.
If you're an interesting
Unless it doesn't pull. It doesn't
You don't
deploy.
pull a thing.
Yeah. And
Oh,
that's your
that's
last day.
Interesting, then you're
It's
very interesting.
yeah, dude.
guy, what a story.
Yeah. That'd be so sad.
Yeah, sad. You
Yeah.
weren't gonna say sick, but
Well, sick in the sense of sick and twisted.
true, good point.
Thank you.
So I think interesting people gravitate more towards activities that are ruled by their personalities.
That's true. You said this. You're right.
So you just, yeah, if you're buying a coffee and then the rest is you talking with a person and
Yeah.
you don't have a choice but to, So here we go to varied choice of activities. Now, I'm a hater of activities. And
Whoa, you just said you wanted to have activities. Is this a contradiction live on air?
I like active activities in the sense that, well, yeah, buying a coffee or just like walking in the park.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say, what's the thing people do? Yeah, like, oh, let's go bowling with
Yeah.
with a girl. Like,
That's a GTA reference. I don't think people do that anymore.
people do that.
People bowl in 2023?
Certainly. If you want to take extreme scenarios, I'm sure
Agree to
we
disagree.
can. I'll
I
find
mean,
one person.
No, of course. I'm sure it exists, but it's really not common. People would rather go to like arcades or I don't know, something like that. You wouldn't-
So here's the thing about varied choice of activities. I think you have a certain disdain for Quebec people.
Me?
Yeah,
Why? I live here.
from what I've heard in your podcast.
Yeah, it's for fun though. I hate everybody on the show. That's
Do you think someone can be interesting by having lived a very limited existence, like never having left a country? I'm sure people who have traveled, in your experience, have more to say. Correct? Like, can you
depends. They do, but they have the ego that they have is far greater than the actual experience they have. So they travel and they think, I'm literally a word master. You know, I've seen every word. I know every word. I've heard every language. I've smoked a doobie on the shores of Jamaica. It's like, who cares, bro? You went to a resort one time. You know, like the ego drives. The ego is driven way further than the actual experience, I think.
Wouldn't you say that it acts just as any other factor that we've identified? Let's say you have some guy who's visited 200 and how many countries are there?
There's like
260
194.
194 countries, right?
I
You
think,
take
maybe.
away like intelligence from him. You take away, I don't know, charisma,
The guy traveling.
storytelling.
What? he
I've been
doesn't even
to-
know where he is. He's just like, yeah, I went to. Yeah.
I'm in which one now?
Yeah. The way that you talk to him, it's like, yeah, I've been to China. It's like, yeah, do you mean Chinatown? It's like, no, I've been to China. I've been, I've been to the. He just names all the neighborhoods. That's awesome, dude. That's a good bit.
Awesome bit. So, wouldn't you say that it acts as any other factor in the sense that if you give varied experience to 10, so he's been through things, he's blah, 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 and you make him like less smart, blah, 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 that's kind of an interesting person. Then you put their experience from 1, they have a limited, like short-sighted view of what is good because they've experienced only one type of good.
True, but patriotism doesn't mean you don't know the other. You can love your country and have seen the rest.
So, but it's just so logical because what, your country coincidentally happens to be the best one of everyone you've tried, but you were also born in it? That sounds like...
No, it doesn't mean it's the best. Patriotism doesn't mean it means I like the country the best. Doesn't mean like it is the best. I don't mean, fascistic or like aggressive domination. I just mean like I prefer it because I was born here. I'm from here. My parents are here. I don't have that. See, I was born in Hungary. My mother's Iranian. I have very little. Of course, I love the cultures, but I have very little like patriotic sense. But I do think that people who do are justified. You shouldn't be angry or not even angry, but just you shouldn't say that they don't know better because they love their country.
Okay, but if they've never left their country,
Yeah.
there's this kind of thing in the back of my
For
mind
sure,
where I'm
that's
like,
a big if. Lots of people who hate the country be like, "Yeah, Quebec sucks," but I haven't been to many countries either. So I feel like I agree with you when it comes to closed mind. If you're closed-minded, that's bad. If you haven't lived, that's bad. But if you have and you still prefer yours, that's completely okay.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's what I'm
100%,
saying. So,
yeah.
but what you're saying applies to people who are like Canada sucks, but you can say that without having been anywhere else as well.
In a justified manner.
It's unjust, well, justified. Yeah, it's your opinion. You can think what you want. You can be like, I hate it here.
See, the thing is with the philosophy podcast is we're trying to arrive at something objective.
That doesn't exist in my opinion. But I won't disrupt the show. So if you're telling me that, then yeah, okay, I understand. But I can't agree with stuff I don't agree with just because it's logical.
Wow, and that's another discussion, I guess. But okay, we can count varied experience as one of the factors because look, if someone is there and they have perfect storytelling, blah blah blah, but they don't have any story to recount because they just don't do anything and they
Yeah,
stay
see,
in the basement.
I think you're confused. Maybe that's just my opinion. Feel free to disagree. I think you're confusing interesting storyteller with interesting life, and that's not the same. Some people have lived great things, and they can't tell about it, and other people have seen a squirrel walk across the street, but they say it in such a enthralling fashion that you're like, oh hell yeah, I can't wait for that to happen to me. If I see a squirrel, I'm gonna bust out laughing.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if we disagree here because the point about the story of the stewardess is that wasn't an interesting story, but because the storytelling trait was maxed out,
Yeah,
that was a 2-minute bit.
that's stand up, by the way.
Yeah, I understand,
People who like at open mics, you see a lot of that. People are like, I'm gonna tell them the truth. I'm gonna reveal the societal problem. You suck, you know. People who are really great. You look at any great comedian, Dan Carlin, George Carlin, freaking all the greats,
All the Carlins.
But you know, I think Dan Carlin did Hardcore History. That was awesome. You might not like it. I think that these people are able to talk about things that are very common and make them interesting. Because if you're talking about something super esoteric, like for example, you know, you've had a crazy situation in the war or something like that, that might be interesting, but most people can't relate to that unless you bring a you know, human interest aspect that they can relate to. So that's not you know, that's all. So that's all of stand up.
Okay, but let's just call that a trait of people and stay out of stand up.
Okay.
The two things that you made distinct, weren't they the things that I said? Good storytelling is the way in which you like enrich a certain experience,
Yeah.
and what I called varied choice of activities is that experience. So if a person has zero varied choice of activities, and let's say they see the squirrel,
Yeah.
but they have maxed out storytelling, that's gonna make an interesting story.
Yeah.
Right. But if they have, you know, lived through a war,
Yeah.
but they're like vanilla, they don't have any
shell shocked. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just so shocked they still can't.
PTSD guys, not fun.
Yeah, so zero storytelling, but
Yeah.
actually extremely varied experience.
Yeah.
That might make for something interesting too, because if you're recounting fact, we don't have to blur
That's
that.
a report,
We don't
not
have
a
to.
story. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a report, but it can be a fascinating one just through the fact that the story itself is so. I mean, wouldn't you say that zero in storytelling is kind of reporting? If you have zero storytelling, then you're a guy who's
No,
like,
zero
this
in
factual.
storytelling would mean that you can't even tell the story. So the report at least has a certain coherence to it. People are like, "Oh, dude, this happened," and then no, sorry, not the girl. The guy, they're all mumbling.
Okay, so
and
let's call it
fumbling.
like 3 out of 10 in storytelling.
Sure.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, 30%. I'll take it.
Yeah, you love your 30%. So my only thing is, those are two distinct factors, and
Yeah.
one of them could be maxed out, whereas the other one could be very low,
Yeah.
and that could still make for an interesting person.
Person, no story. Yeah.
But I mean, the person comes with all the stories, though.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah, but the story is great. I don't know if I would say most, and you don't like stand-ups or whatever. Most public speakers aren't necessarily interesting people, but they're very good at the task that they're doing. It's a skill.
yeah, so okay, at least in that context,
Yeah.
to the members of the audience,
Yeah.
they're interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I live your life, love your friends,
Live, love, lie.
Live,
live, love, lie.
laugh, love,
Live, laugh, love. So we
Eat.
laugh.
eat, pray, love.
We pray, love. Eat, pray. Eat, pray.
And also
Yeah.
love.
And
Yeah.
also love.
Yes, I eat love all day. I eat love. I receive love like it's a big meal, and I absorb it.
Very
like it's-
metaphorical.
yeah.
Okay. So we have humor. Look,
And we do have humor.
I think it's
Humor.
indisputable, right? Maybe we can factor in humor in good storytelling.
If it's a good story, if they're talking about the Holocaust, it's like, oh, and this guy looked kind of sick. It's not gonna. You don't want to bit that up. You know, you gotta choose the stories you make funny and choose the stories you tell solemnly.
Good. Okay. So let's divide them up and fathom the two different factors.
Yeah.
If you have a comedian that is extremely funny,
A comedian talking about the Holocaust has to be really funny. That's a hard topic.
yeah, I mean, there are a bunch.
I know
who do
there's a
that.
bunch, but like they usually say something more than just the events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I expect of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very important.
All right. So let's just say humor is something, passion is something.
Passion is something, dude. It's a fruit as well.
I'd say, yeah. So humor and passion can be sub factors of storytelling, and they can kind of be distinct in their own manner.
So true.
Now, how about being polarizing?
Yeah, being polarizing. Yeah, that's what we started off with. Actually, that's good.
It is, right? Authenticity makes you kind of polarizing. And here's a Sean Strickland quote. 50% of the audience might hate me. 50% of the audience might love me, but at least I have 100% of the audience.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say that's something that an interesting person
So I was
would
reading
say?
the Winston Churchill quote, but I
Yeah.
agree. Whatever. Yeah, I agree with what you said.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to read it out?
Yeah, sure. It's kind of small. Testing my eyesight.
Yeah.
But you have enemies? Good. That means you've stood up for something sometime in your life. Thank you, Churchill. Very wise.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Did you get that? Did it come through the accent? Because that was a little thick accent. Churchill was a fat guy.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading along, so that's why I
Nice,
could
nice.
understand.
Nice.
So, I think, would you classify that as first grade factor, or do you think being polarizing is a result of your authenticity? Because we talked about
Authenticity means you're true to yourself. Okay. If you are a person that is polarizing, then yeah. But polarizing, you shouldn't be polarizing to be authentic necessarily, depending on who you are. So some people are so nice and inoffensive personally that they don't need to be polarizing to be authentic. It would be more inauthentic for them to be like, hey, so this guy came up, what an asshole. That would be way faker for them to say if they're not believing that, for sure.
I would agree that's like a second-rate factor if you want to grade them in like of utmost importance. So like we could say that varied experience, having
Yeah.
lived through things, is like a first up there, and then a little below that is the storytelling. Because I think I do agree that if you have varied experience, even if you are not that good of a storyteller, if you have those stories not about a squirrel but about like something more interesting, and this applies to this too, right?
Nah.
What? Not what? I mean, I said a bunch
dude.
of things. Not what?
No, just real quick. I think that if you have a great story but you really suck, some people start speaking. I want to kill myself. I just want to choke myself out, dude.
But I would put being authentic and honest above being polarizing. But polarizing, I think, is a strong word. It's more like being like a bit divisive sometimes, and I think it comes with being honest. Because if everyone's lived through different experiences in their life, which lead them to different opinions, and if you're 100% honest,
Yeah.
even if you like try not to offend people and you make an effort to be nice and
I don't
everything.
say try, because when you try to do something, you're inauthentic. I'm saying some people are just like, yeah, so I was born, I helped everybody out, everybody likes me. Obviously, some people will despise that because like, oh, what is this guy? A good guy? But
Right.
it's not as polarizing as someone who has more like divisive opinions based on their life, or like. So it's I think it's a secondary property in the sense that it comes with being authentic. If you're authentic, you can be polarizing, but you don't have to be polarizing to be authentic at all.
Yeah, and it would be very bad to be polarizing and not authentic.
Yeah, well, that's literally fake. Yeah, so you're just trying to be edgy. Yeah. When you're a smooth, cuddly guy instead.
I think what comes out of this is, while it was chaotic, I think we agree on some grade system with.
No. I never agreed for a grade system.
But I identified factors. We debated factors that are present in intelligence.
Yeah, and then you put numbers on them, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, but I mean, your determination of the numbers is. I think your biggest argument throughout the whole thing was each rating of each factor for you is subjective.
Yeah, so there's no rating. Numbers are not subjective. So if you put numbers to it, it means it's objective.
Numbers are not subjective. They are if your rating is 5 and my rating is 7. That's subjectivity.
Then 5 equals 7, which makes no sense.
In Cartesian
in math.
Geometry. Whatever. Okay. So look, lesser conclusion. We've identified factors that might factor into being an interesting person. We have no idea what that is. Some people are interesting. To some, Others aren't.
Yeah, we've learned
uninteresting.
nothing.
Yeah, I mean, if you're pulling me back down, I determine something.
What? Yeah, true. Let's.
Well, what I came here to prove was that there's a certain minimal grade. It can be very outside of our perception. It can be very hard to determine. Like, I'm not gonna rate, your interesting percentage very, very easily. But there are some factors that factor into that grade. And if you do want a grade to be present, the factors that we have identified would be the things to be graded.
That's
You
your opinion.
disagree?
That's your opinion. I don't want to cut you
Alright.
off, so keep saying yeah.
No, that's fair, but I also don't want to come to a conclusion with which two of the co-hosts don't agree. So that's
Or
unfair.
one person actually. We got one mic, it's one person. So whatever he says, I agree with. What do you think?
Oh, are you agreeing with everything I'm saying?
Yeah. Say be nice. Be nice. You can say some pretty messed up stuff right now.
About him, about my
No,
brother?
about anything, because I'm going to agree with whatever you say. So if you were mean,
Oh, so I have like your life within my hands right now.
Yeah.
Finishing comment. We have a figured it out rating, okay, at the end, and we say a figured it out rating
I
of
understand.
how much we figured out the topic, and I would give this episode a 2. I was a 2 out of 10. I was very entertained. It was funny, but we stumbled
disagree?
around everywhere. Chris wanted to have a structure and determine points, but I think we weren't on board.
we went through every point, I think. We did go through every point. There was a list, and every single. Oh, now he's gonna talk. We had a list. Oh, that's the extras. See, it's written extras right there. Yeah, we went through every major point, and I'm like, yo, I disagree. You agree? And
My thing. Okay, look. What I'm gonna say.
Our thing.
I really do have to leave. What I'm gonna say
yeah,
is that
for a birthday party.
for a birthday party
Yeah.
at a restaurant, and I gotta go. Is that I think the branching off topics where we could have went, but we needed to be brought back to being interesting, would have been more interesting to talk with you about, and I don't know, maybe that's something for the future, but 2 out of 10. Have a good night, everyone.
You want to
Am
give
I supposed to? Yeah, thank you for having me. That was great.
Yeah, but you want to give your rating because we average
Oh.
out the ratings of everyone.
Yeah, I agree. 2 out of 10. That's a good one. Because I like 2 out of. If you say 0, it's mean. If you say 10, it's false. So 2 is good.
All right.
No,
by
I'm-
that same logic, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is all good.
No, but he said 2, so I'm going with him. I'm
Because
with him.
you're one and the same. Okay. Well,
What do you think?
you know what? It seems as though
It's
it
stupid?
almost seems as though it doesn't matter what I think because
Yeah.
every single conclusion we've come with, you guys agree. So majority wins.
It's not majority wins. I'm just saying. I think that the point of the podcast, not to say to you what you're supposed to do, but you say something. It's different opinions, and then the audience decides: do you agree with this or this? It doesn't have to be a conclusion within the people on the show.
It's
People
true.
later on, the millions listening will be divided, and that's
Yeah.
good.
I like to sum it up well, and the only way I can do that if it's summed up well in my mind.
Yeah.
Which is not right now.
Yeah, I know, but that's good because otherwise you would solve every issue of all time every week.
Which is the ultimate goal of Thinkin Bros podcast.
Yeah, I mean,
It's ambitious, but do you hate ambition? You hate
yeah, I
capitalism?
hate ambition
Do you
because I
hate
don't agree with you.
capitalism?
Come on, man, let's get serious. No, I love ambition. You got to be ambitious. I'm just saying, if you think something, yeah. All right, brother. Yes, sir. It was great. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
so we lost 1/3 of our podcast. So
he died.
if you wanna, do you wanna shout out any recent
I'm good.
projects?
Thanks.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, DC.
Yeah.
We were the Thinkin Bros. For
we're
more
the-
information, go on thinkinbros.com.
True.
Contact us at
I don't know how do you contact.
thinkinbros@gmail.com.
Oh, nice.
I'll edit your voice over it.
Yeah. Thinkingbros@gmail.com.
Awesome. And we'll see you next week.
Nice.